الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله وحده والصلاة والسلام على من لا نبي بعده أما بعد. The next hadith is a hadith also in regards to staying away from the dunya. Hadith of Abdullah bin Mas'ud radiallahu anhu. He says that once the Prophet sallallahu alayhi wa sallam said, لا تتخذوا الضيعة فترغبوا في الدنيا. رواه الترمذي. A very short hadith, but very great in meaning. It was from amongst the miracles of the Prophet ﷺ that he was Jawami al-Kalim, which means the Prophet ﷺ would speak very short and concise, but if you look at the shuruhat or the commentaries of the hadith, they're very long. So it's just maybe a line, maybe two lines of hadith, but the commentary and the meanings of the hadith are very deep. And so here as well, very short hadith, but the commentator has written quite a lot in regards to this. The Prophet ﷺ said, while advising a Sahabi, لا تتخذوا الضيعة. ضيعة in the Arabic language literally means land. And we know having land is a means of wealth. It's an asset. It's something that the person owns. People, even nowadays, how much land do you own? How much is it worth? Houses, things of this nature. And so here, ضيعة means lands, or lands that are in regards to business. And so the Prophet ﷺ was advising the Sahaba, do not take extra or lands that you don't really need, فَتَرْغَبُوا فِي الدُّنْيَا, because having extra wealth or extra land or extra business, it will give you raghbat in dunya. It will give you a wanting or a need or a desire for dunya. And when a person starts something, especially in regards to wealth, in regards to business, or in regards to money and land, it may start out small, but the shaitan knows, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala knows, as human beings, we are very greedy and we want more. You look at the rich people in the world, they're millionaires, billionaires, but they're still not content with what they have. They want more, they want more. And so the Prophet ﷺ would actually advise the Sahaba that do not increase more than you need. So don't increase more than the land that you need for farming, the land that you need for your home. Don't increase more than that. There's no need for you to overdo it, because this will give you a raghbat in the dunya. And he mentions an example of how the Sahaba and the pious predecessors, they were very, they didn't like when there was an extravagance in deen. In the time of Umar radiallahu anhu, it was a time when there was a lot of futuhat, the army of the Muslims were taking and conquering lands, and still when the foods and the spoils of war would come, Umar radiallahu anhu was very strict about how he would take it. And sometimes he would bring back special foods. When they would conquer a certain area, there were certain foods that these people ate, and they would bring it back to Umar radiallahu anhu, sometimes sweet, sometimes things of this nature. And Umar radiallahu anhu wouldn't even want to look at it. And sometimes Umar radiallahu anhu would just take one bite and he would say, that's all I want. I just wanted to taste it. And he would hush it away. And so this was, their raghbat was in dunya, it was in deen. And the human nature is that our raghbat is in dunya. So to flip this around, the Prophet ﷺ would always teach the Sahaba and advise the Sahabas to stay away from excessive love of the dunya. And we know the famous hadith of the Prophet ﷺ, and it's mentioned here, hadith reported by Sahl ibn Sa'd al-Sa'di radiallahu anhu, when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, the Prophet ﷺ said, لو كانت الدنيا تعدل عند الله جناح بعوضة. If the world was even equal, meaning the value of the world was equal to even the weight of a mosquito's wing, then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala would never give the kuffar anything from the dunya. Meaning the world isn't even equal to the value of a mosquito's wing in the sight of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So it's something that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala doesn't value. It's something that we only need to get to Jannah. And if we use it against ourselves, end up doing haram with money and things of this nature, then it will lead us, instead of getting us to Jannah, it will lead us to Jahannam. So we ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to save us from the fire of Jahannam. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to guide us, to forgive us, to keep us and our families away from all harm. Just a short incident that came to mind. I remember once a scholar, he visited here from Pakistan, and you sometimes can see people who are very, they only care about deen. They don't care about the dunya. And one of his students had just bought a brand new Hummer, and he had it parked outside in the parking lot. And so after the scholar was done with the speech here, he was on his way out. We were still kids back then. We were outside, and the Hummers were just new. And we were outside in the parking lot, like, wow, look at the car, and the uncle actually brought it up in front of the masjid, and we were, all the kids were like, wow, it's such an amazing car, it's like a tank, and so the student of the sheikh, he told us, he said, I'm gonna have Hazrat sit in this car. I'm gonna have Hazrat, when he comes out of the masjid, I'm gonna ask him to come sit in my brand new car, in my Hummer. And so for us it was kind of awkward. Hummer is like, it's Dunya, it's like the max of Dunya. How much more Dunya could you go than such an extravagant car? And then we say, why would Hazrat or why would the scholar sit in your car? I mean, it was just a mixed emotion. And so the scholar came outside of the masjid and he said, Hazrat, I'm Baitan, I've just bought a new car, come sit in my car. And the sheikh just turned as if that person wasn't even there. And just walked straight past him, walked past the car, and it was like, like a slap in the face to him. That all of this dunya, there was a whole crowd of people just looking at the car. But when the scholar came out, it was nothing to him. It was just a piece of dirt. It was just a car that looked nice, a piece of earth that looked nice. And he walked straight past the car, and all of us were like, yeah, whatever, it's just a car. And then, it was just the end of it. And that uncle, that student of the sheikh, he felt so bad. He felt as if, later on he even sold the car. He was like, oh, what's good of the car if my teacher won't sit in it? Well, there's no use of the car anyway for, such an expensive car. And it was something that stuck in our minds that, people who have a rahbat for deen, they don't have this rahbat for dunya. They don't have that craving of more and, the nicest car and none of that. So we ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to purify our hearts like He's purified the hearts of the pious people. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to guide us and to keep us away from all harm. Subhanallah bihamdi, subhanakallahumma bihamdik. Nashhadu an la ilaha illa anta, nastaghfiruka wa natubu ilayk.